So continuing on our series of, practically Tarot 101 topics is what we're really doing, Mary.
Yeah.
Today we thought we'd talk about yes, no spreads. And the first part of this is, and I want to get your opinion, because a lot of people are big on, or not big on yes, no spreads. A lot of people say never to do a yes, no reading, that the tarot is multi-layered and we should, we should be doing these giant spreads and pulling out all this information and all these layers and everything. And I agree with that to some extent, but what do you think about how a lot of people are negative on yes, no readings?
I don't think a lot about, what other people think about it, because, but I have to say, it's like we all have to decide for ourselves if we're as readers, what kind of readings we do, what kind of questions we can address, that kind of thing. For yes, no readings, I love using a pendulum.
Pendulum.
I think a pendulum's the best way. Flipping a coin is second best. But no, what I like to do is I like to do it as a comparison spread,
Oh
so it's
yeah.
like I'll draw 3 cards for each, 3 cards for yes, 3 cards for no, and from there derive which is it. Now if it comes out like sort of the same in meanings, then it's a maybe, because sometimes it's just a maybe. you know we like to think the problem with yes or no to me is this idea of being set in stone, and
Mm.
a lot of things are, they're either going to happen or they're not, right? But at the same time, there's certain things where so many different, you know things go into the decision that is made for something to happen or not. There can be a lot of moving parts, and depending on how far out we're talking, if you're asking a yes no question on something that's going to happen next year, well, I just wouldn't ask that question. you know
Oh, okay.
it's too far away. Keep
Hmm.
it within a 6-month time frame. Sure, sometimes you can. The clearest yes or no I get, though, is with the pendulum. But how about you?
Well, there's a lot of parts to this. One thing I wanted to mention real quick is all you got to do is a Google search for yes, no tarot spreads, and you're going to get a gazillion ways to do this. And I didn't want to go through a lot of different ways. I have the main way that I do it. I think it's the best way to do it, the best spread for it, and the best way of doing yes, no, and why you would even do a yes, no. Um, but I just wanted to mention, if you want to look up a whole bunch of them, you can just Google it, right? But I thought we would just do 3 basic ones, basically, really 2 basic ones, and then the 5-card one, which is the one that I use here on the shows, actually. But I wanted to rewind back a little bit to um, why and how, and should we even be doing these kind of things. And what I'm thinking about is that a lot of this comes from that whole thing, like a wave in the tarot community over the last decade or so, of we have to ask empowering questions and we have to change the question and make it more empowering for our client. And so someone comes to us and asks us when am I going to get married, or a yes, no question, which is what we're talking about. We're not supposed to do those. We're supposed to reword it into an open-ended, empowering question and everything like that. And what I did was I actually went the exact opposite way. I, as an experiment, started just because I listened to them, starting 20 years ago, and did that. And I was, reforming every client's questions, and it's actually a lot of work to me. And so I decided as an experiment, I'm just going to answer the exact question the way they ask it first and give an
Good for
answer.
you.
And then see how that changes the question or how other questions come up, and then pull cards for those questions. So you're still empowering the client. And there's a way to do yes, no, where you're still getting a lot more information, and it's not just a magic 8-ball type of thing. Because that's what I think about really when people say, yes, no readings, yes, no spreads in tarot. It amounts to a magic 8-ball thing, Mary, for me. And I think there's much more empowering ways to do it. But just to start off, let's talk about, you shuffle your cards and you pull your cards, and you could be doing as simple as you've decided for yourself out of the cards in the deck, what cards represent a positive outcome or a yes, and which ones are more negative or a no. And then you're just pulling cards and looking for that. Really simple. You can just pull one card, and you get a major arcana card. Oh, yes, that's a yes. Something like that. It's like you just pulled, oh, strength card, yes. So I mean, that's a real simple way of doing it. One really popular one is the aces way of doing the readings. So that's when you shuffle the deck, and after you shuffle the deck, you start pulling your cards off the top and flipping them so they're face up and putting them down. And what you're doing is you are flipping out cards into a pile, and you want one of two things to happen. Either you get to the 13th card, you just stop, or if as you're pulling cards, you get an ace, you stop. And then you move to pile number 2 and you pull 13 cards. Or if you get an ace, you stop. So you keep pulling. Oh, there's an ace. I'm going to stop. If you get no aces as you're pulling the cards, when you get to the 13th card, stop. And what that's doing is the aces are yeses. There's even a version of this I saw where I can't remember what the cards were. It might have been the 10 cards were taken as a no. And so you're looking for those as well. And I think the simpler version is the one I just said, and easier to do. So you're counting out 13 cards. If you get an ace, that's a yes. And if you get to 13, it's a no. So what you end up with is you get more than a magic 8-ball or a flipping of a coin, because you can get maybes in there too, because you have you may have a yes, yes, yes. You may get 3 aces, or you might get 2 aces, yes, yes. Or you might get 2 piles that had no aces and 1 ace, which is probably no. Or you could not find any aces, and so you have 3 piles with no aces. So that's a really strong no. And what you can do, if you want, you can just take it like that. It's like, okay, strong yes, probable yes, probable no, strong no, and be done with it. Or you can look at the cards, the last card that was on top of the pile or 2 piles that you didn't get an ace, and that card will give you information as to why is it leaning yes, but it's probable, and not real strong. If it's 3 empty piles, so 3 no's or 2 no's, those cards will give you the information as to why and what you need to do. I think that one's a really good one, quick and easy. So pull a card, Mary, Is it a yes or no? Doing the 3 card, looking for aces and counting off to 13. If you don't get an ace, you stop at 13 and start the next pile. And then, my favorite one, this is the one that I use on the radio shows. And the reason why I use this is that it's really quick. It can give you a yes, no, and more information. It can give you even more nuance on the probable yes, leaning yes, that kind of thing, Mary. And it gives you, instead of 2 or 3 cards to work with, 1 card, you have 5 cards, but it's really
Well,
fast.
what is it?
So it
What
works.
is it?
I'm getting to that. So it works well.
I'm
It works
excited.
well on these shows, and you can use it for anything, really. I mean, I've had times when I'm with a client and that's all I was doing was pulling the same 5-card spread. And I got it from Susyn Blair-Hunt. It's in her book, Tarot Prediction and Divination.
That's a good book.
Yes. And I wrote a article on this a while back on the Tarot Guild site. I called it The Little Spread That Could. And I have the link to that, and also a link to Susyn's book in the description on this video. You'll find that below. For those that are listening live right now, though, I'm going to put that in the chat, put it in the comments here, the link to my article. And I'll also, I'll put a link to her book, Tarot Prediction and Divination. I'll there we go, pop that into the comments as well. And the way it works is you're shuffling and you're drawing your 5 cards, Mary. You can do it different ways. You can just lay them out, what I like to do is, we said this a couple of shows ago when we were doing how to pick a card, where I do the cutting to the heart of the matter. So I'm feeling along the side, and where I feel and where it breaks, I pull it, and the card on the bottom is the heart of the matter. And then I put the rest of the deck on top, and I'm pulling cards off the top. And what I like to do is I get that heart of the matter card on the bottom, and that's my central focus card. I put that down like that, and then I pull 2 cards to each side. That's how I get my 5. That's the way I do it. You don't have to do it that way. You can just pull 5 cards and lay them out, And what you're doing in this spread, as far as it being yes, no, is you're looking for your yeses and nos. And the way they're comprised, the way that Susyn put it together is, you have your major arcana cards are a yes, and core cards are a no. And then within the minor arcana, the numbered cards, 1 ace through all the odd cards in the minors are no, and all the even numbered cards are yes. So it's really simple. You're just looking for major court card, no, major card, yes, even numbered card, yes, odd numbered card, no. And really quickly at a glance, you can see. But instead of just getting a simple yes, no, you could have 5 yes cards, which is really rare that you'd get that, but you could have 4, which means a strong yes. But you could also get 3, which is probably yes, it's leaning that way, but what I always say with that is that there's something left to be done, or you could be getting 3 no's or 4 no's, where it's like pretty strong no, or 5 no's. Absolutely don't do that kind of thing, So you're getting more nuance than even the 3-card one that I was just talking about, and definitely a lot more than just a magic 8 ball, or flipping of the coin with that. And over the years of using this spread, I've gotten a little bit more nuanced with it. Technically, an ace is a 1, which is an odd number. And so technically that would be a no. However, because I get a whole spread, Mary, I can actually look at that and see it in context with the other cards. And for me, sometimes the ace means a yes. And in fact, in other spreads, you're looking for aces for yes, you know. So I can take it as a no or a yes, depending on the situation. And there's some other cards that are technically no's that but have a really positive aspect to them that in certain situations, depending on the question, I might take it as a yes. For instance, trying to think of something good here. Oh, like the 9 of Cups, for instance. Generally, you know, the wish come true card, really positive, but technically that's supposed to be a no in this system because it's an odd, you know. And so you're going to have different nuances on this as to, you know, what's a yes for you or what's a no. But what's really powerful is after you've done the spread and you've gotten whether it's a strong yes or probable, or maybe it's a probably no, you know, or a strong no. After you get that, you have 5 cards to work with. I got my central focus card, and I've got all these other cards that are giving you information, maybe telling you, you know, why. If you're getting probably yes, but not a real strong yes, why? What's left to be done? Because if I get 3 yeses, 2 no's, or 3 no's, 2 yeses, that to me is a probable. And what it's telling me is that if it's not yet, if it's leaning yes, especially, that there's something left to be done that hasn't been done yet. So that's the spread that I use.
Wow. You know, it brings up an interesting thing though, listening to you talk about your approach to it. And I kind of feel like it's so subjective when it comes to like what cards
Oh
are
yeah.
good cards for us. And I do kind of a similar thing. It's not really a yes no spread, but I do a 5-card spread like every day, right? Because I have a lot of decks that I think of as working decks, you know, ones that I work with. So maybe I have like 20 decks that I work with, and I do a lot of reading. So if I just use the same deck the whole time, it would get completely worn out fast. You know, I have one that I use most of the time and it's pretty worn out. But what I do is I'll pull a deck off the shelf and I'll ask the deck the question, are you going to be accurate? Are you going to be a good working deck for me
That's
today?
interesting.
You know, and if I get any cards out of the 5 cards that I pulled that I don't like, you know, then I don't use that deck for the day. And I keep going through until I get a deck where all 5 cards are cool. Okay. That's how technical my system is.
Wow, you got a whole system going there.
Yeah, as long as because I figure 78 cards in a deck. If a deck can't give me 5 good cards out of 78, I'm not working with it today. You know, it's like
Are you going to be accurate
right
today?
Yeah. Are you going to be accurate? Are you going to be helpful? And I don't know, but what it does is it sounds so silly, but what it does is it gives you a sense of confidence. You know, because you're like, okay, my deck's working with me today. I'm ready to go. Bring it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't have a library of decks. You know, I got a bunch of decks laying around, but I'm not a big collector like you are. And I've always just worked with one deck all the time. So I don't have to go through that process because I just, you know, I can't. I don't have the decks to do it. So I just have my one deck, you know. I typically would always use Wade Smith, but you know, I fell in love with Chiro's Grand Lux and I can't use anything else now. I just love this deck. So there's our little topic for the day. And hey, if you got something out of that, if you learned something new, if you got a good reading today or something, and you want to buy Mary and I a cup of coffee, there's our tip jar. You can go over to coffee.tarottoday.live
My
and
coffee cup's empty.
yeah, buy us a cup of coffee or something there if you want to give us a little tip. Maybe you learned something today. Maybe you got a good reading, and the URL is coffee.tarottoday.live. You can pop over there